Welcome back to Occultists Anonymous, where we're really just kind of chilling, having a day off from the normal actual play, and we're here to talk about our. I don't want to say talk about our favorite Chronicles of Darkness line, because that suggests that we have way more experience than we actually.
I'm here to spit hot takes,
right? But I am sitting down and I have the glasses on, which means I'm just another one of the gang, and we're just hanging out. Corbin over at the Awkward GM challenged us to make a Chronicles of Darkness tier list, so we're going to do that. But quick shout out to all our patrons, supporters, friends. Thank you for your support. And because I know the patrons have been conspiring this week openly, so we're going to read through this list and see what. I just refreshed it. I have not braced for any kind of impact. So YouTube guys, if we cut to we skip the Patreon list, it's because they did something very naughty. Thanks to Adele, Al, Alexander, amazingly and actually articulate Adamantine Arrow, Bernie, Buck, Clara, Doggo Daloon, Eddie Brock. Thank you. I almost just went to Eddie. I was like, wait a second. Emil, Funzusu Raleigh, Isabel in the Sky with Diamonds. Oh, with Lightning, who needs diamonds. Excuse me. James, Jenny, John, Josh, Cat Feathers, Klaus, Crazy Man 1772, make my monster grow, which I'm sure is more of a Rita Repulsa line, but I can't remember. Does Lord Zed say it too?
I don't remember.
Because he just throws his big old spear thing down, right? Yeah. Michael,
different line.
Milo V3, Biz Grumpy, Moku, Mozart D minor, Noba, Not Noctal, Other Guy, Perry, Porter, Puppeteer, Ralph the Boob Genie, Ralph.
Yeah.
Riafio, Ryan, Sheksara, Terran, the Patreon renaming shenanigan crew, Sorry Drew Division, Thomas, Vortex, Why is Camo pinging me? Zoltan. So yes, thank you all for your support and harassment. And if I have done everything correctly, I should be able to click a button here. Aha! And Craig is is currently covered up by a little tier list of Chronicles of Darkness splats and
this is professional production crew ability right here.
I had 30 minutes extra time to prep.
Thanks to all the heroes in our studio for making this happen.
Yeah, production team, top quality. Thank you all.
Your $8 million Patreon that helps us, get to this.
No joke.
The deal with Amazon Studios is coming any day now.
No joke. Patreon funds help pay for the new computer. Let's be very clear. I have been saving money from my personal allowance and then some Patreon funds, and yes, new computer. And I'm kind of upset this weekend that we're not playing because I really wanted to test the difference in render time on a video. This is not going to be a fair comparison.
Right.
So we're gonna go through these. I know Chris and Ash already posted theirs in our private chat. They'll probably post them in like Twitch spoilers or something like that, so you can see what they did. I will say we did change up ours a little bit because for as Chris pointed out, there's none of these that we hate. Hate is a real strong word. I've adjusted mine. Ash removed hate with I only have 4 tiers. And so so you can see these here, and we'll talk about them as we go. Ralph, if you need a link so you can make your own, I can get that to you here momentarily.
No, okay, I got the link.
Okay, good stuff. But yeah, we're doing this because Corbin challenged us, and it's not really a challenge to go through here and talk about our stuff. So going left to right in order. And we'll just kind of talk about these as we go. And as I mentioned at the start, I know for Chris, myself, and Ash, we don't have a ton of experience playing all the splats or even reading all the splats. I don't know actually, Ralph, how much, because I know you before running with us, I know you'd played Mage. Had you played with a bunch of the other splats?
Yeah, played a lot of Vampire, a lot of Werewolf, played Demon, played some OWAD Changeling, played Hunter, played Mortals, both Chronicles and Old World of Darkness. Let's see what else. Made plans to play Promethean, and that never happened.
Oh, we've all been there.
Rip.
That was many years ago. It was like, oh, this is cool. Let's do this. And then I was like, hey guys, we're not interested in that. There are other games we want to play.
Rip.
And then we're like, okay, well, we'll
circle back around to
we'll
this.
How about we come back to this in a little while, and then you know how it goes.
Okay, well, cool. So we'll have a little bit
just
of
like a Promethean's eternal quest for humanity.
Can't be settled in one place too long.
Yep.
The fans of the game are an eternal quest to actually play.
Yeah. Hey, mage vibes. So yes, these are all listed out in left to right. Also, there will be a link in Discord, in Twitch chat, and on YouTube if you want to make your own little tier thing and share it with folks. Please do. The more people are talking about Chronicles of Darkness, the more support it is likely to get for future publications and stuff like that. So just make your fandom known. So
oh damn, we missed out.
No,
not my vibe. Should have been better than D&D.
You know what? We can change that right now. Better than D&D. Which that may actually change some of my answers. No. But yes, starting at Mortals, Blue Book, absolutely stock folks. They are definitely going in my better than D&D category. There's
not mine.
Yeah. And some of that is just because I personally am a little worn out on D&D. But for me, Mortals, it would be like playing D&D as a commoner character, which could tell some very interesting stories, but I feel like you are missing out on the purpose of playing, one of these games. Even a base level, like no powers hunter, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And of course, this is all just my opinion. Feel free to chime in and argue with me. I have no problem with that. But I feel like the base level hunter has just a few more things to make you feel like a more competent character. Now, that said, I will acknowledge that core Blue Book human is terrific if you want to do Crystal Lake running away from Jason. Wait, hang on. I feel like I did that right. Yeah. And you want that straight up horror movie vibe. Or you could go play a game that has you imitating horror stuff, like They Came From Beneath, or stuff like that.
Right.
So I just feel like there may be better ways to do that.
Yeah, I feel like pretty much anything the Blue Book does, I could do better with another system. Like the sort of game I would want to play is basically a hunter game, so I could just be playing a hunter game.
I think for me, and maybe this is like a fun way to pad time here a little bit on the tier list, but like a way I could see myself playing it or running it would be. Is there a baby?
Sorry, Amanda delivered my giant skull coffee mug.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely filled to the brim with coffee. And it was a very delicate operation.
Ah, I see. What was I saying? Oh, so the way that I would enjoy having a Mortals game is either in a more genre savvy, like going into it sort of thing, a little bit like Crystal Lake, what we were talking about, where the players aren't meant to be winning, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the difference between that and a hunter's game, where like you should be accomplishing your goals as a hunter, right? But as Mortals, like if you're just some dude, maybe you got a little bit of pyromancy or something like that, you're a little bit of a weirdo, but something like that could be fun. And then, as Chad has said, playing a mortal that you plan to develop into a splat can be fun. If you read the What Happened at Our Game channel, you see Noctol's game. That's certainly a game that people are playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some chat here definitely has the right idea. use Mortals as a stepping stone is a good way to do it. And yeah, Mortal style game using Hunter rules would also be pretty good. Where you give people a little extra use of their willpower. I know there's a Hunter set up for like making plans and teamwork stuff. All right, well, since Ralph is going to be another minute, we're going to roll on to the next one just so we
can always circle back for Ralph.
Exactly. Which brings us vampires. Hot takes. Yeah, definitely drops into my like wanna play category. It has slowly moved up from my like I'm just gonna do this as a one shot. Maybe I'll run it, maybe I'll play it, but I'll just do a little thing. But now it's started to grow on me of like, yeah, I definitely actually want to play this. I may want to run it, but I'm definitely more of a like, yeah, let me just play it, enjoy it. I have a couple of vampires that would be fun to play.
Yeah, my only experience with vampire is with Bloodlines, and I love that game so very much. So like, I don't know. I honestly don't care. People start going on about these families or whatever that I've never heard of.
Families?
Clans? What do you think?
The other World of Darkness clans? Yeah. Yeah, La Sombra. Yeah.
I don't know what a La Sombra is, yeah.
They're the super classic shadow vampires. Like, no, they don't catch fire, they just get obliterated by sunlight.
Bloodlines was Masquerade, or was it?
It's Masquerade, yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, but they...
So a lot of the Requiem ones I don't know either.
Yeah, well, the Requiem are all the same and less.
Deva or Toreador, but not.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Malkavians are not, or Mekhet are Malkavians, but not necessarily with the same concern, and they spun a lot of those main World of Darkness clans off into I think they actually call them bloodlines, which are kind of like mage legacies, where it's like you're a Mekhet, like Malkavian is actually a Mekhet bloodline, so if you want that madness and future sight kind of thing.
I really like the prophecies where like they might not all be true, but you're getting them all. But yeah, so then you have to sort of work through that, just like constant barrage of stuff.
Hey, Ralph.
Hello again.
Hey,
can you hear me?
You know,
yes.
Fantastic.
Welcome back.
Aren't we all so fortunate? Gotta celebrate the small things.
Very fortunate to have you with us. Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me post my tier list for you.
Oh,
we started talking about vampire, but if you have things on mortals, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I think Mortals is about integrity. Right? I think
very true.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's about experiencing the decline in your emotional security as a consequence of challenging circumstances, and also playing through the means by which you as a group and by extension a community can bolster your sense of self. So I think if you approach it that way, it can be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Because it isn't really a substitute for other contexts in which you are non-powered individuals trying to solve overwhelming challenges. I think the integrity mechanic is the key aspect.
That's good. My vampire take is that I separated my tiers into want to run, want to play, one shot, Atacon, and not my vibe.
Cool.
And I put vampire in the Atacon, where I could sit down, I can pretend to be a bloodsucker for 3 hours, and if it's not happening, then I can just
be done
and leave, because open door policies are great and part of consent in gaming. So
yeah, I would never play vampire with people I don't know already. So
fair. I have played some challenging RPGs at cons with people that I felt more comfortable with random people than with like friends.
Yeah.
So stuff like Bluebeard's Bride and Monster Hearts and stuff, where it can be like really ugly is maybe a word.
Yeah.
As long as you are not trying to actively harm other people at the table, then I think it can work out pretty well. Whereas things can be a lot more uncomfortable between friends and stuff like that.
Yep. Also, Ralph, looking at your tier list, I love it. Ralph has 2 tiers: prefer to play, and everything else is like. If you want to see what it is, you'll have to come by Discord, and I'm sure we'll probably hear about it as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just in general, I don't have much interest in Vampire. There's if I'm gonna devote the time to learning system and playing in the sort of Chronicles of Darkness space, almost every single one is at higher than that on my want to play or want to run. I think it's just more thematically interesting in a lot of the other splats.
And actually, one thing that this little tier list does not really bring up, and I almost want to create another tier list video later, it's talking about Contagion Chronicle and who would be interesting in a Contagion, because like that's where like, oh yes, I'm a vampire from 1700s working with more modern characters. That character suddenly has a lot more interest to me as opposed to playing a standard vampire now.
Sure.
Chat says, what's Contagion?
What is Contagion Chronicle? Contagion Chronicle is not really it's not a splat. It's the cross splat. I'm going to throw this term out here, but don't panic. Metaplot that basically says, hey, there's some bad stuff that's happening, and it's the splats of the darkness, all your mages, vampires, and other supernatural beings that are clued in on stuff happening, and in one way or another want to stop it, control it, or figure
out what it is.
Right. And they create these little cross splat groups. I cannot remember the names of them at the moment. And it's literally for playing your zoo chronicle. So you have your mage teamed up with your geist, teamed up with your werewolf, teamed up with a changeling, and they're all working on something, and they're bringing their own expertise to the table. And it has a lot of interesting stuff because, and let's bring up the elephant in the room. Oh, mages can do everything. Mages in a general term, yes, but when you're talking about
mage,
right? But when you're talking about the singular vibe in that group, well, if you've got a werewolf and a geist and a changeling, you know what? Don't do death stuff. Don't do spirit stuff. Don't do mind stuff. Well, what's that leave? Fucking show up and be the goddamn Obrimos fire wielding, and just why did we bring this guy? Why did we bring this guy? Oh, right. Right. I remember why we bring him now. The whole building is on fire now. Right. Yeah. So, it's
he went on a vision quest to the oversoul of the world and came back with a sword that's just labeled Sodom and Gomorrah.
Give me that. It's mine now. As we should now know, everybody, all sandwiches on this channel are turkey clubs. That's the rules.
Reference to the rookery?
Yes.
Oh. I shouldn't have got this turkey out of a can.
Oh.
It's sardines.
Yeah.
Delicious. My favorite.
Yikes.
I've been eating a sardine sandwich every day since 2014. Goddamn delicious.
All right.
I'll tell you about them sardines.
Oh boy.
So moving on to werewolf.
Moving on to werewolf.
I want to comment on vampire.
Please.
Oh yeah, fair.
So the three games I prefer to play are werewolf, vampire, and mage.
Sure, the big three.
Yep. And having played through a number of the others, it's partially influenced by good experiences I've had with groups in the past, and also certain aspects of the storylines and the setting that I really enjoy. The thing about Vampire I like is that it is a test of the capacity for players to separate themselves from their characters and also to maintain group cohesion. So I found that I really enjoy vampire games when I'm playing with people I trust. I don't enjoy them when I'm playing with people I don't trust. They're particularly good in that regard. I find that werewolf is more forgiving with people I don't trust, because then you can assign them, like the ST can assign them a role in the pack, and their ridiculous behavior can be written into the story, and it can add into whatever tales are told about them, and they have to deal with the consequences. And they might be okay with that because they might meet a violent end that they seek as a player, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a vampire that's running around ripping people's heads off all the time, it's going to be a problem for everyone in the story and out of character. We're just going to be bored, right?
Yeah. Having a Rahu who wants to fight everything is like, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
please
fair
go.
enough.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're playing correctly.
Yeah. But
yes, exactly.
a
There we go.
Bruja, doesn't quite do the same kind of vibes. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
We
can move on to werewolf.
Werewolf for me, it's definitely up there in the want to play. It's not a huge favorite, but it's definitely grown on me. There's this one group you guys may have heard of called Rescue One, and I kind of got attached to it and built it out, and I built out several characters, and I was like, damn, actually no, I kind of get it now. I get the appeal. And some of that was also because at that point I was no longer hyper fixated on playing mage. I played mage, and now everything else. Oh, okay, it's more of a balance here. But yeah, no, werewolf is definitely up there. If nothing else, just because of, and nobody is surprised, base building, pack building, territory control. Give it to me. Put it directly into my veins. So that kind of stuff is a lot of fun to me.
That's great.
I just really like werewolves.
Please raise your hand in chat if you are in any way surprised.
Yeah, I mean the werewolf game that I played in was a ton of fun. We found out
What's a noise?
Sorry, that was open window in my room.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good. Certainly that campaign went off the rails quite a lot, but that's great. But the early part of the campaign, especially of like having a newly conquered territory that you're trying to scope out and control, and finding little pockets of spirits. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm having fun playing Isabel in Mage Game, is interacting with the spirits. The spirit world is. I think werewolves have some of the more interesting, I'm going to term it cosmology, of most of the splats. With having the gauntlet and everything, and in the spirit world, the Hisil to go explore, and pretty much anyone can be a badass at any moment with your form changing and stuff like that too.
Well, and all the different aspects, all feel like they have a specific role, and not one of them is the, hey, you're the party support role. Like even the talkie Elodil? Yeah. Oh yeah, they're the ones who talk to people. But yes, they're also the ones who stare down a, charging, rampaging, death rage Rahu and go, why don't you settle down? Have a Snickers. And they can do it. And that's, they have some very cool bad aspects.
And the aspects don't prescribe only one type of person, right? Just like a path doesn't prescribe that. So there's a lot of room to play. Like having my character, Sophie, be a Cahalith, which is like basically the pack bards, essentially, based on the trope, but have her be a comic artist and be telling stories and keeping them for posterity through telling them in her comics. but hiding them enough so the sheep didn't catch on.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So
my favorite aspect of werewolf. Oh, I'm sorry.
I put that in my want to run tier.
Cool. My favorite aspect of werewolf is the focus on collective glory. So it is an ostensible assumption in most games when there are people around, you're going to be getting together and you want the group to succeed, right? You don't want to succeed at the expense of the other people you're playing with, and you don't want your character to succeed at the expense of the other characters, right? You generally don't want that. There's a very explicit focus on that in Werewolf, which I really enjoy, because that can be really fun. It gives you the opportunity for selfless sacrifice that is a direct part of the story. There are mechanics to facilitate this, and that can lead to you understanding a lot more about the people you're playing with, and also help you understand how to contribute to a story in general. I found that I learned a lot about role-playing by playing 5 years of Werewolf the Apocalypse, almost exclusively. When I first started gaming, there was no D&D or anything else. It was just werewolf after werewolf. Different packs, different aspects, different tribes. What'd you say?
I said that explains a lot.
Yeah. I didn't play D&D for the first time until, God, what? It was like 15 years into gaming or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, it was a long time.
Ralph is backwards, and now we all understand why. He skipped the gateway drug. He went straight to Apocalypse.
I went deep into it. Oh, man, there's all kinds of stuff. I got a character who was castrated by a Jagling on a way to try and get Helios as a totem. I got a character who sacrificed himself in a Black Spiral Dancer hive in order to save his pack. Had a character that lost his voice, and he was the... God, what's the word? It's the Cahalith analog in Apocalypse. It's you're the Rage Singer. I'm trying to remember the name. Damn it. Anyway, so
we're not losing your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I could just look it up right now, but I'm not. So anyway, yeah, losing your voice when you're responsible for singing the glories and the tellings of your pact. It was a huge problem, right? And how to negotiate that, right? Because it wasn't an ableist tale to suggest that there aren't means by which you can communicate without sound, right? It was just, how does this character approach it, considering that all of their glory, all of their success was based on communicating in that specific medium? So how did you negotiate that in that context? I found it really interesting. Yeah, so lots of stuff happened like that. As you can imagine, there are interesting things that happen in 5 years of gaming and exclusively in one system.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Moving on then to Promethean. Definitely for me, one-shot material, which is kind of unfortunate. I would like, if I enjoyed Promethean, I would enjoy an actual chronicle, because the journey and becoming human, that is really cool, and I feel like Promethean, of all the splats, has the most to gain from a long-term chronicle, because you have all these different, I think they're refinements to cross through and to experience, and then eventually, hey, maybe you can be a real human being with a real human soul. I think that's a really cool concept. Unfortunately, none of the vibes of Promethean like grab me enough to be like, oh, I would want to play that character. It doesn't speak to me, sadly.
I really like. It just seems hopeful. Whereas most of these absolutely do not. This one is just like, you can have a good ending. You're trying to get to go and be a real boy, and yeah. I don't know. I like it a lot. I haven't looked into like the mechanics of actual how Prometheans work, so I don't know how I would like actually playing one, but just abstractly, I really like the system.
The movie AI always comes to mind when I think of Promethean, and just having that whole journey of
Bicentennial Man.
Bicentennial Man is another really good one. Yeah,
it's true. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, for sure. I put this one, I'm gonna say it's at the top of my one shot. Like I absolutely would play in a campaign, but it's not in my want to run category because I have no idea how the fuck you put together a Promethean campaign. Like, what do you do, right?
Yeah,
because it's and
It feels
the way
very
that
reactionary.
the way that I run a campaign traditionally is going to be centered around a location and a group and how they interact, and build out a library of NPCs and stuff like that. And Prometheans can't stick around but for so long before things start to go wrong around them. And suddenly there start being
wasteland effects, and everybody hates you.
Torches and
you don't know
pitchforks.
why.
I almost said porches and pitchforks, and that was not right.
That's such a good tragedy, though. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I really like that. That's lends up to like a really good story.
Yeah.
Yep. I think Chris and I are both looking at it from the ST perspective of, I don't know. No, that sounds like extra work.
I've read through it several times. I'm like, this is such a well-written game. It's all the mechanics are on vibe. Like, I have no idea how to do it.
Actually, yeah,
I think
Chad
it works
has
well in a multi-splat game.
Yeah, and Chad has a good point here of it being a communal game with like a rotating ST. So as you go from city to city, and so and so stayed behind, and then that person then story tells the group as they move here, and then everybody met up here at this other thing as they kind of kept in touch with each other or something like that. Could actually be kind of cool.
My thoughts on Promethean are that it benefits greatly from having a conversation about the nature of humanity. So you want everyone to be on the same page about the kind of story you're telling and the themes you're exploring. Right. I think Promethean, I think a group's struggle in playing Promethean, accomplishing a Promethean Chronicle when they don't have more than one session 0, right? You need to have an extended conversation about the themes at play, because Promethean, more than any other more than any other specific setting in the Chronicles of Darkness, is less about the mechanics and more about the kind of character you're becoming, because it is a firm transition, right? In almost every other one, you're retaining the identity you had at the beginning when you conceived the character.
Right, trying to stay human.
Right? Yes, exactly. You're trying to stay human. You're trying to maintain your wisdom, your integrity, whatever it is, right? In Promethean, you're intentionally trying to shift. Like, that's the end goal, is to get away from what you are now into another stage. And in order to do that, you have to have a group of players that understand what's going to be happening to the characters. It's not going to be a casual experience. And so if you do that, if you explore that in depth, and you're all on the same page about what's going to be triumphant, what's going to be depressing in the course of the story, I think you can play through it in a really interesting way. And then the mechanical challenges can be interspersed so that it provides some additional flavor and breaks up the intensity.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
I think you kind of just solidified something in my head. Is that Promethean of all these, I think, pretty much of all these, takes the most work from the group to make it be good.
Yeah. It can be real satisfying if you put in that work. It definitely requires it.
Moving on then to we making faces here. Is it Changeling time?
It's Changeling time.
Which Chris has been playing a bunch. Yeah.
Want to play it, want to run it, love it.
Yeah, for me, Changeling is in the one-shot material for me. I have no problems whatsoever with Changeling. The concepts are cool. Autumn Court all the way, obviously. Yeah. It's just, and some of it is, I haven't dug into the book nearly as much as I have with the others. I didn't read it in prep for the Rookery, for instance, stuff like that. And it is actually, of the systems, the second edition one came out a little bit later when I was looking into stuff.
About the time, it's like came out right around the time we were starting, wasn't
it? Right. Yeah. So I didn't have the time to look into it nearly as much. So
3 years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, the concepts are really great, and the escape from the Fae, find a fetch in your place. What do you do? Not to mention the idea of, and I do not remember the name of the groups. Actually, are they courts?
Mm-hmm.
And freeholds, I think.
Freeholds is the name of the
concilium equivalent.
Concilium, essentially,
right?
Yeah.
That I think is really cool, and you can get some very interesting mutual assistant vibes while also dealing with some politics of everybody wants different things, and how do we that political side, and it shows up in Mage, obviously, and that's a thing that I enjoy, is very interesting to me. The different forms are very interesting, but I don't have an idea of like, and again, some of this is from the storyteller perspective of I don't know where I would go with this for a game. But I definitely happily play and somebody correct me and show me where I've gone wrong.
Yeah, I don't have changeling opinions. I know literally nothing about it. It sounds neat.
Okay. My perspective on changeling is that, well, let me start this differently. I have played multiple Acanthoi that are focused on deals and negotiation. Because oaths and the consequences of the things you say are aspects of games that I very much enjoy. Stories in general, right? I think people having a reputation matters. I think exploring the consequences of that, how to sculpt it in different ways to accomplish different goals, and sometimes sacrificing it for the greater good is compelling. Because I think it's the one thing we really have as people, right? We have agency over our decisions and how we perceive the world, regardless of our circumstances. Some might argue against that in different contexts, and there's some base for that perspective. However, for the most part, it is affirmed in so many different spiritualities and philosophies that the main thing we have, and the only thing we'll have, is an ability to perceive the world differently and choose how we're going to act in a particular circumstance. So in Changeling, that's what it's about. It's about trying to accomplish your goals based on specific directives and taking advantage of the fact that people are going to be heavily locked into what they say to you and what you say to other people.
Yeah. I mean, one of the mechanics is straight up just like spend a point of clamor and block someone into a nonchalant promise they just accidentally made.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
So good. It's so good.
Great. I love it. I very much enjoy that. And I would love to play in a campaign where multiple characters could be focused on this, but at least one. And it wouldn't have to be my character necessarily, right? But a character is focused on trying to lock everyone into specific, otherwise innocuous oaths so that they can accomplish a grand scheme that betters the world.
Yeah.
So I'm very much interested in a Machiavellian plot where they're getting people to do things that are going to inconvenience them, but they have some ultimate end goal that's ultimately going to be better for people, like a better consequence. And I don't mean like a Thanos snap or something like that, right? I mean, like, this is going to result in measurable differences for everyone who's been suffering, but it's going to require a lot of pain and a lot of inconvenience.
One of the you bringing that up, I'm like, yeah, I want to trade up from a paperclip to a house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For me, I really like the split class setup that Changeling has, where you pick your seeming and also your kith. And I'm probably gonna hold on, getting my ideas straight in my head. Your seeming is like your ogres, your beasts, your ferists, your stuff like that. Your like classic like fairy creature trope. And then your kith is like ways in which that is presented. So I'm playing an ogre that is also a snowskin, which so she's made of ice and her heart is locked down in ice. So playing as emotionally reserved and stuff like that. And all the different combinations you can kind of put together with those are very interesting. And you're given free reign to pick a kith that doesn't make sense. with your seeming, and then like, okay, what did your keeper do to you to make you be like this?
Yeah.
And playing around some of those ideas can be heavy, but it can be really kind of interesting. I mean, it's like a lot of these games, it's a game about trauma and specific kinds of trauma. But it can be very not enlightening in like an intellectual way, but spiritually enlightening to explore some of those themes sometimes. So
yeah,
and more so than I think some of the other games, as a storyteller, you're given a lot looser of a leash because you can go into the hedge, and the hedge has everything. It's like into playing the tomatoes, right? It's got everything, and it's got every trope that you want to be there, and you can turn it on its head in whichever direction you want it to be.
Yeah,
and it's just a lot of fun.
That's wonderful.
Jumping in real quick before we get Ralph's take. Comments in chat made me think, you know what, that is exactly the changeling I would want to play. Show up, see that my family has accepted my fetch as okay, cool, fine. He's better. All right, fine. Better believe I'm about to be fairy godfather, and just like you need a limo to prom. Sure, no problem. I'll hook you up. That's and fun. Just like, who is this weirdo, and why does stuff keep happening? And like, nah, man, don't worry. Fetch dad has got you, but don't worry. Real dad has magic powers to really hook you up.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh yeah, so that brings us to Hunter. Bam, put that up at the favorite. Throw that up to the top. There's so much available to Hunter, and let's be honest, all of them. But because of the like levels of tier that you can play at, and we'll bring this up in Deviant too, is like you have the ability to kind of confront. Do you want the supernatural Buffy, Constantine kind of vibes, or do you want to step up to more Constantine vibes and up to SCP World Organization kind of vibes, and where do you want to fit in with that world? Yeah, go back. Yeah, and how you interact with the supernatural and the organization you're part of. Do you want the plucky heroes who are defending their town? Because I know I kind of did the Union kind of wrong in the Rookery. So I showed you guys the what's the nice way to put it?
The bad faith take on that stance.
Bad faith take on it, yeah. Minutemen, yeah. Kind of vibe. It's like, yeah, these guys aren't exactly great. It's like, well, yeah, but they are also terrified out of their mind and just want to defend and take care of themselves.
Red Hat Grandma was okay. She was
good. Red Hat Grandma, man. And yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to do that, and I really like the ability for. It feels like a lot of the other splats are like, hey, everybody should be a different path and order, so we get all these different takes from stuff, where Hunter is like, no, we're all going to be part of that same group. We're all going to be part of the Union, or and if somebody doesn't want to be, that's fine. There's plenty of narrative reasons to not be, and to bring somebody in as an expert or something like that, and that's very cool. But the idea, it kind of throws back to even Werewolf, where it's like, yeah, we had this pack group thing. I think that's really cool for Hunter. And as I mentioned before with the Blue Book, I'm playing a fairly vanilla mortal, but with a little more oomph, to allow me to do the fantastical, which is kind of the reason I play TTRPGs. I don't play TTRPGs to be a Joe Schmo. Those stories are not particularly interesting to me. For those ones, I'm gonna bust out my pen and paper and I'll write a story, or I'll read a story. When I want to play something, I want to actually, do stuff I can't do. Same reason I don't play football on my console. I'd rather just go out and throw a football around and be inept that way, as opposed to
being sports.
right. As opposed to being inept at the video game version. So yeah.
Yeah, like I would love to play like a John Constantine, like the early Supernatural, where it's just normal people, and
two guys in a car,
two guys in a car.
Wayward
You
Son.
gotta stop some demons that are threatening people. Just sort of occult educated people who are using everything that they can get their hands on to try to fight back against things that are preying on them, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I like that vibe a lot.
Gotta love some Buffy.
I put this one in my Atacon tier, but I mean, it's like at the top of it. It's like bottom of my one shot sort of thing. Like, I'd enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sort of like if we were the situation in which I could see me having fun in an OA context playing Hunter is kind of like how we have done these last 2 episodes of Kids on Brooms, of like literally just sort of monster of the week, like completely episodic, disconnected from a you maybe get like you said Supernatural. That's probably
Supernatural Buffy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And having the plot be
you get crumbs of
characters.
overplot here and there. But yeah, you're just, like, I mean, there's a game called Monster of the Week that I really enjoy that is that. So Hunter, it's a cool system to read, and it's got some very well written ideas. In the context of Chronicles, there's more things that I want to play more. Kind of how the ranking has to be, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me too that I kind of need to divorce it from Chronicles at large to really enjoy it, because it's like I really like looking at the humanity of like your vampires.
Oh, sure.
And whereas your hunters we're killing them. It's like, but I don't like the monsters to be monsters in this perspective, right? From like a entirely different worldview.
Just homebrew a monster fucker agency and
well, and actually they do bring up, I cannot remember which one. I mean, obviously Lucifuge have some very, like supernatural, hey, we're kind of maybe demon blooded, so we're kind of monsters on our own. But there are some who are like, hey, listen, you need to put down the unrepentant monsters, but the ones who can be saved, controlled, can control their urges. I mean, not I don't know that any of the hunters are trying to put, well, okay, some of the higher tier might be actually trying to control vampires, but that whole idea of knowing the monster that's next door and going, I see you. If you lose self-control, I will put you down, and having the relationship, and this is definitely a Buffy thing where, no, if I lose control, I want you to put me down. That is a very interesting vibe to have. And especially because, yeah, you're just the plucky little hunter, but then that vampire comes over and he's like, hey, buddy, I need a favor. And it's like, okay, well, what am I getting out of this? You have some interesting, tiny fish in the really big pond moments.
The thing about Hunter that I've always found is that it is the only supernatural context where the perspective on every other supernatural is sensible and realistic. Because we are going out on a limb to say, oh yeah, let's empathize with these vampires, these mages, and these werewolves because it's fun. However, that does not make any sense.
No.
They have all the power, and they're constantly exploiting and oppressing humanity.
Oh, for sure.
And these hunters are like, I got some guns. You're the worst. I'm going to take you out. And then they say, hey, not all vampires. And what context and reality do we hear similar phrasing all the time, right? And we find that objectionable. So the hunters are like, look, I can't take that chance because I saw your friend and they ate a baby. And he's like, he's not my friend. He's like, you were talking to him outside a nightclub. What are you talking about? It's like, we just have a business arrangement. It's like, I can't deal with this. I don't know what you are. You're dangerous. You have way too much power. And I've seen this go to people's heads, even in a simple context. Politicians are doing horrible shit.
Right.
So Hunter is a context where you actually get to play out some of the things that make a lot of sense in how we orient systemic oppression. In the other splats, we are definitely engaging in a power fantasy, and I think we forget that sometimes.
A short campaign with a good faith take of kill them all and let God sort them out, it would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Why should I believe what you say? I just saw you warp a wall and turn it into mud. Right. Like,
Those
what
goddamn
makes
sorcerers.
Yeah, exactly.
What did that wall do
Why?
to you?
Why should? Yeah.
My grandpappy
Well,
built
why
that.
should I believe you wouldn't do that to me at the drop of a hat? I have no idea how you think. Right. Like, I can't imagine it. All I know is you gotta go, you fucker.
Also, just Moros literally ripping out souls. It's
Mhm.
not even hard.
Yes.
No.
It's not
Yeah.
even difficult.
It's trivial, right? Vampires are draining blood. Werewolves are ripping people apart. Right? There's all kinds of crazy shit that happens. And the hunters are just like, this is too much. Can you calm down? You're also not taking care of your house, right? The hunters, when they're like, look, for mages, for example, right? Mages like, we're not all that bad. It's like banishers and seers, all right? Deal with them. And they're like,
Tremere.
well, it's not my problem. I try, but
Tremere.
it's like, yeah, and the Tremere, that's right. And the Tremere, right? They're like, why are these guys still here? Look, if I have to take out your trash, I'm definitely not going to trust you. And that makes sense to me. That
Now,
seems
that
really
said,
sensible.
the hunter that rolls
one
up.
more time.
Yeah.
That said, the hunter that rolls up and like kicks a Tremere unconscious over to a bunch of other mages, I'm a hire that hunter and be like, I don't know what you do, I don't know what your skill set is, but you and I need to talk about some long-term employment. Because I will. You want a mansion made of gold? Sure, if you could solo and take down a Tremere. Though I do need to make. Go ahead.
One last thing is the aspect of that I find is nice is I think Hunter is an opportunity for it to play all of that. It's also a way to build very useful foils as NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
So dropping them in where they're not hostile, but they express that perspective I just described, where they intrinsically distrust you and they remind you that you have a lot of power and there's no reason why everyone should just believe you without knowing you that you're not going to hurt people.
Right.
And then it reminds the players and the characters that, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there's some danger we're dealing with here and we're being a little cavalier.
Yep. But no, the thing I was going to do, quick shout out to the hunter, and I cannot remember what power it is specifically, but it's basically some astral projection. Your attention and self leaves your body and you can send it anywhere and do whatever. And I was like, oh, this is super cool. And it's like, okay, now, be aware some things can see you and may damage you. You use these stats. I'm like, oh yeah, you turn into an ephemeral being. I recognize this from Mage, blah, blah, blah. If you are attacked and destroyed while astrally projecting, you return back to your body with the soulless condition. Oh, what are you doing, Hunter? Put that back in your body. What are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. You're just throwing your soul out there? No. And it was the best thing to read out, just in context of like having a mage look at, what do you do? Oh, that's a cool trick. Wait, hang on. No. You shouldn't be doing that. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have the ability to go grab somebody else's soul and put it back in, man. You're not licensed for this.
But if you're stealthy, you head to Metropolis. You read up about your targets.
Oh yeah, but it's not even that astrally projecting. It's the projection from mind. Let's see here. Back to the tier list. That was Hunter. Oh, Geist. Yes, top tier at the favorites. Absolutely, 1000%. Heck yes.
Vibes.
Yeah. The crew.
We do bones, motherfucker.
If you haven't read the books, please go read the Locked Tomb series, not trilogy. Can't call this trilogy anymore. Highly suggest lesbian necromancers in space. That's literally all you need to know about it. Go enjoy it. But yeah, doing undead stuff. Hi, yes, please. Also, a second chance at life as just like a vanilla mortal side of things. Very, very good vibes. Crews, yes, please. Create your own pseudo death religion with a bunch of friends and try and figure out something that works for you. Cool. It's like you're playing a bunch of, Greeks or Romans.
This is the first spot that we actually got like rules for building a group around yourselves and stuff, right?
Yeah, because we had the crew came out and then later the pack as a supplement came out.
Right. And then the mummy.
Oh yeah, the mummy cults.
A little bit different.
Yeah, that's true. And Deviant does something similar too, but that's for the bad guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, also very true.
Yeah, Geist is just really cool, and having that, like, for a lot of your time, you're kind of just a just a guy that sees ghosts as a bound. And then you turn those keys and oh fuck, why is there a ghost in your soul, for your soul? And suddenly the ghost of someone that to pull on my character I played in a one shot for Virtual HorrorCon, I think it was. It was a person that my character had been killed by being struck by lightning, random death. And her Sin Eater was the lineman who had tipped over and died on the third rail of the subway. Yeah, so being able to just sort of, for lack of a better term, mask off and just like let your ghost do some shit is very cool.
Yeah, and it is one of the things I really like. I'm a big fan of Venom. The synergy, like I have to work with this being who admittedly has a reason to work with you too. So it is a two-way street, and that is your power stat. How good you two are getting along, love that. I think it's a great concept. And the fact that your Geist, has a not necessarily murder mystery, but has a death mystery for you to slowly discover and figure out. And you may not be able to resolve it because maybe they died in, 1650 or something like that. You're not bringing a murderer to justice, but you might, they may have died just back in the, aughts. That's terrible. Back in, a decade ago, and you can find out who did it, resolve it, and clear that cold case.
Similar to Changeling with the Fae having titles, a lot of the way that the Geists are presented, of like the lineman or the bloody bride, or they're just like really evocative things that you can come up with.
Caricature. That's the wrong term for it.
Like almost like a trope, actually. But
all right, I'll pause. I'll wait, and then I have some
go ahead.
thoughts.
Yeah, actually, go ahead and get your thoughts out while your mic is working.
All right, cool. The aspect of Geist that I'm most interested in is two beings reflecting separate aspects of a person trying to reach the same point from different directions. Right? They're both trying to understand their death and their consequent self. And the only way they can do that is through each other. And I find that very compelling because they must be bound together because they share some aspects, but there's no way that's clear to them in the beginning.
Right.
And I actually think with second edition, they actually removed, because you no longer have a connection by way of similar deaths. Because that was a first edition thing. They removed that. And so whatever connection you have is anything.
I mean, the Geist makes the offer, right?
Right, exactly. The Geist, for whatever reason, was drawn to you, whether conscious or subconscious decision. And that I think gives so much more freedom to both player and ST figuring out what they want to do with that connection.
Yeah, figure it out. What's going on? Why are you two together? You're going to have to explore that in the course of the most traumatic event in your respective lives. There might have been other things that happened that were more traumatic than your deaths. Fair enough, right? Depends upon the person.
Pretty much the worst.
Yeah. I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that, right? But this might have been something else. Yeah, that's right. Number one, eating too much cheese. One day.
Ash, what you think?
About Geist?
Yeah.
Again, I've never actually read the book or looked into it, but I think it sounds really neat. I really like coming back into really nice tragic stories where you have a second life, and if you mess it up and die, you're killing someone else.
Yeah, talking about traumatic events. Hey, you're a Sin Eater now.
And you get to experience it also. Yeah,
you died once. Now every time you die, that sucks. And then somebody else has to die, and that sucks. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Until you Like, how do you die for real as a Sin Eater?
You basically have to beg the Geist to let you die. And that, as Chris mentioned, only happens at a certain level of synergy, because at that point, then the Geist is actually willing to let you go, because it will also, I believe it also destroys the Geist. Or the Geist is sent back to the underworld. Either way, not great for the Geist.
Not great things happen all around.
Yeah. Oh, also, quick shout out to Kerberoy and Dominions and the idea of endgame. Hey, the underworld fucking sucks. We're gonna go down there and make one shiny little place.
Yeah.
And that's
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's a good, and it is an approachable thing. Like, let's be honest, Mage is a terrific game, and we're gonna get to that on the tier list. And I did move it farther down the tier list so we can talk about it last. But like, Mage end goals is become an Archmage, maybe, but really you want to ascend, at which point the game ends, and it's also a complete like chance that it even happens. It's DM fiat, as opposed to, no, there's some definite clear rules for happy endings. Well, I shouldn't say necessarily happy endings. One of them is where you consume your Geist, but there are definite, like, these are ways for your character to stop being a character, either to move on and go beyond the underworld, to take over the underworld, or to become a terrible Kerberoy monster that's eaten their own Geist. If you want to be that asshole.
Geist is good.
Geist is very good.
A plus.
Also, quick comments from chat here. Does Vampire and Werewolf have end goals? Werewolf definitely doesn't, because there is until the end of time, or if for some reason spirits and humans stay on their respective sides and the werewolves don't have a job anymore. No, werewolves are always going to be doing stuff. And then vampires, I
think so.
I mean, maybe regaining their soul or something similar, but yeah, go ahead, Ralph.
It's either, dealing with the beast utterly, right, in whatever form that is, or having all the power. Because when you're a vampire, the greatest danger is either yourself or all the other fucking vampires who necessarily consider you a threat to their own goals. So it's either you go off in some weird order direct.
Though while Ralph is fixing that up real quick, yeah, Driftwood does bring up in chat, yes, Geist can also be killed and skip the dead condition by dying in a way that resonates with their original death, or to the Geist Bane.
Yep,
gotcha.
Yeah. So those are also two ways to skip the dead condition, which only exists in Geist.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's lightening up. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Alrighty. So good, we can fix it quick. But I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with Discord. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna have a little chat. We're gonna be like, hey, you can't be doing this to me. Come on now. Anyway, so what I was saying is, when you're a vampire, right? There's a threat to become completely consumed by the beast, or become solely a pawn in the games of all the other vampires. Right? You have no agency. Vampire is a game about agency, a loss of it. You get embraced, and then suddenly you are constantly compelled to sacrifice what you knew of yourself to sate this creature, this impulse, right? So you struggle with that, and then you struggle with others who are like, hey, I'm on top of my shit, and you're going to do what I want, or I'll kill you, right? I'll stake you out in the sun. It's like, okay, this is not fun, right? I didn't choose this, so what do I do? Yeah, I've always felt that the end game of Vampire is either two directions. You choose to try and become Humanity 10, or you try and gain all the power. And those two aren't mutually exclusive, right? You can become very noble and on top, right? But some people are like, I'm going to walk the monk's path. And that might work with your coterie, or it might not. It can be challenging. But that's something that can make for a very interesting campaign, because the slow growth and like eliminating rivals, and especially now with Requiem, where blood potency is involved instead of generation, right?
Yes.
Because in Vampire the Masquerade, you had to commit diablerie in order to get ahead. I mean, you could avoid it in some ways, but like lower generation vampires were so much more powerful, had so many more resources and direct influence over the people you'd be dealing with that you're shooting yourself in the foot by not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the everlasting, yeah, whatever, ever present temptation. Yeah,
that's right. Why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Rolling on to Mummy. Definitely up there in my wanna play. Though for me specifically, it's not even to play a mummy. I would enjoy playing a mummy. I want to play, and some of this ties into Hunter. The sorcerer cult, the cult around the mummy, not necessarily sorcerers. That would be a really interesting campaign wherein you have your mummy patron who has a mission, and you get to do the groundwork. You get to do the investigation while they sit on their throne within their tomb, maintaining their power and occasionally getting up to go kick some supernatural ass. But otherwise, you are their agents, or better yet, hey, mummy's asleep. There's a threat to the tomb. There's a threat to our Lord, right?
Oh, yeah.
And having to handle that, and because you have a bunch of powered, kind of in the mage equivalent of sleepwalkers, agents who are there to support the mummy and have supernatural powers, or I think there's one specifically that is immortal and ageless and doesn't have a ton of power, but that's their thing. And having that interaction and being like, yeah, no, my family has always been part of this cult. We've always served this mummy lord, and my grandmother saw the mummy at one point and received his blessing. So this is what we do. And you get a different take on Hunter, in my opinion, with a little bit more direct supernatural power. And then you have the actual cult, like we were talking about earlier, similar to the Crew, where you have this organization and some goals that kind of create a thing. So very good for a one shot there. But yeah, I'd enjoy playing the shit out of that.
I'm gonna say I ditto everything that Drew just said. I am more interested in playing part of the cult. However, I want to play as a cult setup like the boys from the 1999 cult classic, The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. And
of
just
course,
have the cult be not dedicated to helping the mummy, but from stopping people from waking him up.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I've lost their name.
Yep.
Shit. Black robes, face tattoos.
Yeah.
Oh, the Medjay.
What's their name?
Medjay.
Is that what they were called?
Yes, they're the Medjay. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a good setup. I like it a lot.
Yeah. And there are the villains for Mummy include mummies and anti-mummies, the ones who have, said fuck off to the judges or somehow gained power.
Oh, yeah.
Some of that stuff who then become really big threats. And that's it. I would enjoy doing, hey, we're going to play as a bunch of mummies and play as, like, especially because you wake up with no memories, and just out of character arrange for, that whole, like, okay, how does your character know Chris's character? Okay, but we're not going to state that aloud. I'm going to write something down that Chris's character did to me, and then another thing that I did to Chris's character, and the DM can sit over there and have all these little strips of paper, identify a time when that happened, and because everything is disjointed and stuff like that, and so you have this kind of discovery and like, wow, like Chris and I are getting along really well and we're total bros. And then the ST slides a piece of paper across and you go, you son of a bitch. and you have, and
is that 6 fingers on your right hand?
Right. Right. Took me a second there. Thank you for that. Yeah. But then you have, and like lean into the like total soap opera drama of these timeless immortals. And especially because they do not experience time linearly. I may have this memory of the thing Chris's character is going to do to me in the future.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, Chris is like, I have no memory of this shit. but after your
Mhm.
attitude right now, you better believe I'm going to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or,
with
of
the-
course, because in the future, have no memory of this.
with the disconnected jumping awakenings that the mummies have, from going back to the cult style play, it can almost end up being like troop style play where
Mhm.
you're jumping in timelines and you're like, oh, today we're playing in the 1700s and you're this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 weeks later you're playing as Joe Schmo in modern day kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's like, hey guys, we just finished up that really drama heavy arc. Who wants to jump over to that 1940s timeline that we've got where we're punching Nazis? All right, cool. Get your Tommy guns. Let's go. Yeah.
But yeah, the reading through that book is wild. You just get to all their lore and cosmology and stuff, because
Mhm.
it really felt like somebody was like reading the mage book and said, hold my beer.
Yeah. And very specifically updated rebuke the
Yeah.
vizier.
Yeah.
Fuck that power. It's not that OP,
Okay.
guys. It's not that scary.
It's good.
Speaking of Vizier, I think that's the aspect of Mummy that appeals to me the most. You're talking about the cults and stuff like that. Being the mummy doesn't seem the most compelling. Being the mummy's chief vizier seems extremely compelling.
Mhm.
Gray Eminence.
Manipulating this immortal being that never remembers where they are and what's going on, except for a few specific aspects of their timeline,
Mhm.
seems like a really intriguing and dangerous context
gonna
to play.
say,
a manipulative
Dangerous is the
character.
important thing, because as soon as
That's what's fun.
as soon as that memory clicks in and you watch as he turns, you're like, well, fuck. I'm not even gonna try and fight because I'm dead. Bye, guys. Yeah.
So I think it'd be fun as a group of people who collectively are trying to use the mummy to their own ends and maybe have different goals,
Mhm.
and seeing how that works, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's gonna, if any of you get caught, all of you get caught, right?
Mhm.
So you got to keep that under wraps, and you're tiptoeing around and you're like
Hey.
whispering.
It's some straight up paranoia mummy edition.
Yeah.
Like, nobody upset friend
It's a good
computer.
time.
I refuse to believe that under wraps wasn't an intentional choice of words there.
A
Every
terrible
time-
movie.
Yeah.
You know how this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every 2 to 6 sessions, you jump to a completely different timeline. Exactly.
Mhm.
Because you don't necessarily need to wrap up the events.
No.
Just find a good pausing point. The mummy is still awake and is got a task to do, but you as a group go, all right, let's jump over here. And again, this comes to one of those rotating ST things, which you guys may soon be
okay.
seeing on Occultists Anonymous near you. But yeah, not necessarily for our Mage Chronicle, but yeah, it helps everybody.
Um,
I'm gonna be when IST. I'm gonna be laying either in my hammock or on a chaise longue, right, with the mic, like draped over like grapes.
really let the power go to your head, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Yep.
Be licking
Absolutely.
the mic and stuff like that. Yeah,
Oh god.
You gotta have somebody feeding you the grapes.
Right.
Yeah.
that's true. That's good. I could set that up.
What
I'm gonna
kind
get a
of
toga.
what kind of self-appointed god king feeds himself grapes?
Right. Speaking
That's a
of
good point.
speaking
I'll
of
be
God
like hedonism
kings,
bots.
Yes.
I'll dip my buttocks in the silkiest milks and creams.
Wow.
Mhm. Yes.
Speaking of God Kings, God Machine and Demon the Descent. All right, guys. I'm gonna put this in here. This is definitely like one shot material. Not
Yep.
not huge. Not running for this one. The concepts are very, very cool. I can see where people have a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, you're the spy thriller aspect is really cool, but
Yeah.
the like, oh, by the way, I also have all these wacky superpowers. It feels like I wish some of that wasn't there, and I wish it was a little bit more low key, low powered. I'll be honest. There's also a part of me that's like, I wouldn't mind if you release this with a second edition and updated it. I know it was technically released with, second edition Chronicles of Darkness and stuff like that, but we've kind of moved forward, and I wouldn't mind some better vibes and a little less fuck mages attitude to it. It feels like it has a lot of stuff that is now. I say fuck mages. I really should phrase it as really, really intrigue mages and break a bunch of the rules as mages understand it. To the point that mages are either super confused or completely bamboozled and have no idea that they're being played. Some of those kind of aspects are very interesting.
From a setting perspective, I like Demon a lot. I like the types of things and challenges that the God Machine can present. And we interacted with the God Machine a lot in our werewolf campaign. So that was really interesting to come at it from a completely different angle, completely different angel. But as a player and as a GM, I don't do well with the secret keeping one-upsmanship that a spy versus spy game sort of requires from players. Y'all can attest to this. I have an idea about my character. It goes in the chat, and we separate player knowledge and character knowledge. Like, this is going to be great. This is my backstory. This is, and other folks who are perhaps better at playing Demon than I would be, are like, I have got secret. But Demon's cool. It is very powerful. You're right about that part, for sure.
Ash?
I mean, this is one I know literally nothing
Zero about. Yeah, I was gonna say, it hasn't come up in the Rookery or any of this stuff. So,
what I have heard of the God Machine, I don't like it. It seems
nobody likes the God Machine.
Well, I mean, just as like a meta plot, it seems it's too concrete. I would rather not have that be true, because it leaves you more room to play, right?
Yeah, the advantage to the God Machine is because it is absolutely inscrutable and has completely inhuman needs, desires, and plans. You can just create any whatever batshit idea you want, and it just works. But yeah, that is one of the weaker sides, in my opinion, too, is that you don't have a human opponent. There is no empathizing, as Broth has actually frequently nudged me into doing, is making not necessarily characters that you can empathize with, but where you can see their reasoning. And you look at the God Machine and why are you doing this thing? And you get modem screeches. Okay.
The thing about Demon that I enjoy the most is you can play Oscar the Grouch with superpowers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
I want to live in a trash can. Nobody can find me, right? Hiding from angels. Like, you don't seem like you make sense. It's like, I could fucking blow your mind, but I need to eat this old hamburger, right? Like, it's playing on an archetype and in a way providing a outlandish and very robust justification for a lot of things you hear from people who are struggling with various issues, and it seems completely far-fetched. And so what you can do is you can explore what's the context in which someone is living out a story that is completely true, right? But sounds ridiculous to everyone else.
Right.
Many of the other splats, you can be like, well, I'm a werewolf. It's like, prove it to me. And you show me you're a werewolf, right? You're mage and be like, okay, it's going to warp your mind. You won't remember it. But there's still other things you can do about that, right? The demon, it's not really the case where you can be like, I mean, your cover's blown completely.
You could go loud, but...
yeah, you can go loud, right? But I mean, like, then that's gone. Like, you can't be the same person, right? You can show that you're a demon to somebody, but then you are no longer the person they were interacting with. You can't really maintain that relationship and acquire the acceptance of your perspective, however limited it might be in the other context. So that's what I find interesting.
there's a little bit of overlap with Changeling of the like words really mattering and like patchwork personalities and patchwork lives after the fall and stuff like that.
Wait, aren't they the ones that like you can't lie to?
No, they can lie perfectly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like you, a demon can walk right up to an Abrimos with, truth vision on, and just the sky is orange.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
Demon also is my favorite power. I think my favorite power of like this is something you could do as a mage, I think. But it's Bolt Hole.
Mm-hmm.
Would be challenging to do as a mage, but I really like the idea of I need to hide, and any door can be a place nobody can get into, right? That's hilarious. They go into this bathroom, and then people go in the bathroom. Where'd the guy go? I don't know where he went. I'm hiding there forever, right? You get out, you move on, you go under a manhole, right? You go in somebody's closet. I think it's an amusing power to use. So I don't think that's something I would feature greatly in the aspect of the story of a campaign. But whenever I played Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Now that said, demons as supporting characters.
Yeah. Real cool.
Yeah, that was a fun part of the werewolf campaign. So if anyone knows Adele, she saved up, I want to say 30 XP.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And spent it all at once. And then we came up with in-universe plot justifications of why she suddenly had, not just gifts, but like 5 dots of resource all at once.
Yeah.
And her character like took a dog walking job for this woman. And then she went and checked her bank account like 2 weeks later, and there was like hundreds of thousands of dollars in there. And then she started getting investigated for tax fraud.
Yeah, naturally.
And both the person that had hired her to do the dog walking and the person investigating her for tax fraud were the same demon.
Yeah.
Which was really frustrating to all the poor puppies trying to get a handle on what the fuck was going on.
Puppies in this case being the werewolves.
Yeah.
Not the dog she was
not the dog she was
not
walking.
the dogs.
Yes.
Yeah. The dogs were just dogs.
Those dogs were also demons.
Yeah.
They were. There was something about it.
Yeah.
I don't know that Moko ever told us. You want to talk about Beast?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beast moving into the wanna play category. I'm going to add the caveat of there is some not great stuff in Beast that I would definitely want to add a table, kind of reorganize. Me, I'd rather have, yes, I am a scary beast. I have these particular needs, similar to the way werewolves and vampires and even mages and changelings have, but let's not couch it in the I'm teaching you a lesson kind of stuff. Not great. But challenging up against Gaston-esque heroes that are out to get me because my horror is giving people nightmares.
Oh yeah.
Bring it on, bud. Come on into my lair. That for me is the power fantasy.
The heroes are a good mechanic in that.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And I love Beast as a supporting character. Again, similar to Demon, I think they're literally built for it. And so they provide a very interesting side character. And as soon as I'm saying this, I'm like, man, now I've kind of figured out all the guests that we ever have for Mage, they'll just play Beasts. And they, just hop on in and but it's a very good way to, and I mean mage is okay, but for vampire and werewolf especially, it's like your beast buddy, he shows up and
he's gonna have some things in common with you,
and is more than happy to join you on hunt and help you out with some stuff, and he wants to learn about you so he can give people new flavored nightmares. I love that. I love the crossover potential to Beast. I just not interested in the visit abuse upon people because they deserve it and they need to be taught a lesson. If that is in response to things that they have done, and is actual punishment, sure. But the one example of visiting your bully and haunting him, after no,
years later and stuff. No. I think I've shared this before, but Songbird, the original idea for Songbird started off as a beast character.
Well, back when
with the giant soul or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before we had said yes, we're all playing mages. Yep, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, the cosmological concept of a classic thing out of primordial nightmares has crawled inside your soul hole.
Eating your soul.
You know, you don't have a soul, and now there's a spoopy thing there.
That's true.
Much
So,
like Geist.
Does it just move in and eat your soul?
Yep.
Or did something happen to let it in?
Depends on depends on who you ask.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but it eats your soul and moves in. Though there's some suggestion of, oh no, you were always a beast and now it's awakened, kind of thing. I lean into, no, you dreamed too hard, bumped up to primordial nightmare, and something went ooh and just moved in.
But there's so much like the different sort of, I forget what they're called. In Beast, it's been a while since I've read the book, but essentially the different paths or whatever, the different archetypes of horrors that you can be.
The families and then the hunters.
It gives you so much leeway of like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna be fucking Slender Man. Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah, Beast is pretty cool. I'd play a one shot, I think, is where I put it at. Or at a con. A real short campaign could be cool, but I think the work you have to do with its themes would be a little grating in a long-term campaign.
Right, and that's why I like it as a support. Drop Beast in
Right.
on somebody on a different Splats campaign, I think. Yeah. Sorry, Ralph, you were saying something.
No worries. I wasn't trying to interrupt anyone. I think the aspect of Beast that's really compelling is it shines a mirror on what I consider to be a rather unpleasant impulse that we can fall into as players in RPGs, where we want to experience some fantastical version of revenge on those who have harmed us in real context. And revenge is always a means primarily of selling yourself, and you never get the end you actually desire. So we have these circumstances where, we can play against true evil, right? And we can defeat them utterly, and we can feel good and feel like heroes, right? Or I think Beast is a reflection of what it actually happens if your motivation is directed that way. That suddenly you become consumed by this desire to visit punishment on others with the notion that they deserve it. And the thing about Beast is you must accept that this is what you want. You hunger, so this is why you do it, right? It's matter of fact. You don't have a real motivation to morally balance things or somehow recover some harm to the universe. You desire something and you get it, and this is the means by which you do that. And that's actually what happens when we're acting in vengeance, right? It's always a selfish impulse. There's no way of pursuing that is in any way altruistic. It's always based on us, and it always results in harm to us and the other person.
Mechanically, I like the satiety mechanics. To put it in perspective for folks who haven't read it, is imagine if mages had more of a predilection to do hubristic things the lower their mana pool was.
Yeah, your bad idea meter.
Yeah. The more hungry the beast gets, the more likely they are to just force you to do something horrible, rather than if you were taking care of it and keeping it topped off. You're able to rein in those impulses a little bit.
Changes your some of your different powers too, depending if it's high or low. And that
sounds like a good system.
But because you have this whole do you want a lot of power? All right, you got to starve your horror. But it does mean that night, if you didn't,
yourself and others at risk.
Yep. Also, they introduced the whole like dream web that has a central pivot point. I can't remember what it's called, and hopefully Death Fox reminds me because I know Death Fox is in chat. Where there is the big scary dreamer of an area, which could be a beast, could be a normal mortal, could be a vampire, and all the dreams in the area are kind of themed around that person's. That's the apex. It has, an effect on all the dreams around you, and that is an interesting like exploration kind of thing. But yeah, as Chad has pointed out, Beast is not great as a solo chronicle, where it's just a bunch of beasts.
Right.
It doesn't have the organization that vampire, werewolf, or mage does. That gives you some goal. It's very, as Ralph was saying, it's all selfish. It's all selfish. There's no kind of organization of this is why we hang out together. It's like, nah, just gonna do my thing.
Yep. They're gonna get in your way.
Yep.
Deviant.
Yep. Deviant, top of the list. Favorite. Very good. Has a lot of flexibility with powers. Get to determine your power levels so you can decide, hey, do we have a couple cool little powers and a couple little problems, or are we really powerful and really messed up? And then, of course, that question then reflects on the conspiracies that are out to get you. Or you and all your friends, if you want to organize that way.
X-Men, okay.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm on board for some really messed up X-Men. Making Judd's character sheet was a lot of fun to work out what powers and what negatives he had, and all of a sudden realizing actually Judd is a pretty ordinary kind of guy, but every now and then he puts on the judge, and all of a sudden he becomes way more superior and has only one purpose in life. I was like, oh, hey, Judd is actually probably during most of the time a normal guy, and then every now and then he's like, I'm going to start judging people. It's like, fuck, that guy's here now, because the alternate identity.
I will say mechanically it's a little fiddly. It's a little bit more involved of if you're used to slapping together a vampire or werewolf character in 15 minutes because you've done it a few times. All the scars and variations and everything is a little bit more fiddly, especially when you also introduce like what power level are you playing at, like how many, like you can start with like 35 XP worth of fucking powers and shit at the start. And, like that's a lot.
Yeah, highly recommend if you are interested in playing Deviant, checking it out. Start at the low end. Your characters will be a little bit more moderate. Won't have superpowers. Won't have super negatives, and will be a little bit easier to set up.
But thematically, I love a lot of the tropes that this pulls on, a lot of the reading list, even back to like trashy YA reads of like Maximum Ride and stuff like that. Like there's just a lot of good shit.
Animorphs, man.
Animorphs is right up there too. There's a lot of good stuff that I really like in media that is reflected in Deviant, and it's very open. You can run so many different things with it. And the touchstone system being expanded from a couple other, because like changelings have touchstones, but they're not that important.
Yeah, vampires do as well.
Yeah, but the conviction and loyalty,
and the fact that some of them can swap.
Yep,
that's really cool.
Yeah, like the guy that turned you into this, who also was your best friend, you're gonna have conflicting feelings about, and it's gonna oscillate probably, just the different clades of what powers you have and then how you got them and whatnot. It's very cool.
Deviant hits on a lot of my favorite tropes just across all types.
X-Men what?
But yeah, just I don't know, it seems really there are a lot of options to tell different types of stories with it. Which I like a lot. I haven't looked at like actually building one, but I would like to. This is one that I want to play with because I like. It just seems neat. It's most of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marge. Absolutely. it's up there on the yeah, we're gonna have to do Deviant at some point. So
Great. I'm a huge fan of superpower games. Groups of people get superpowers. What are you doing?
yep.
You cut out.
I'm going to use different words because maybe Discord is picking up words and censoring me.
Yeah.
Who knows? I like it when people acquire alternate abilities, and I find that I am often more compelled by an exploration of how they respond to those abilities they've acquired than anything else. And there's an aspect of Deviant that is often not present in superpower games, which is there's a consequence to these superpowers. You're not the same person, right? So what's going on? You can't just, let's ignore this concept where suddenly we are effectively going through apotheosis, right? Compared to where we were before. And now we're super fast or we're super strong. And I find that oftentimes those are representations of worth for a lot of us, right? We're playing these characters, and now that we have this power, now we believe that we mean something. Now we believe that we're really valuable people. And in Deviant, it's a reminder that, hey, listen, you're going to get these powers. It's going to have an effect on you. And what you still retain is that concept of self. So you really need to reconcile these two things. Otherwise, you're not going to be whole. You're not going to be okay. It isn't like a Superman fantasy where all of a sudden you have all the power in the world and you just need to live like a Boy Scout and everything's okay, right? Like, this is not cool, okay? Becoming inhuman is not fun, regardless of what you can accomplish as a consequence.
Just always think of the Futurama quote. It's like, hey, how's your soul looking there, Deviant? To shreds, you say.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
and everyone around you when you change to shreds, you say.
Yes. And that's
yeah.
Ralph brought up, the idea of, oh, you have superpowers. It's actually one of the things I really like about Deviant.
Yeah.
Half of the desire of Deviant is not, hey, I have superpowers and now I'm going to go be a superhero. It's, no, something is after me. I didn't sign up for this. I don't want this. Or I signed up for this and I got something completely different from what I thought. And now something is after me. So it is a very, it's a game where you can't just sit on your hands and be like, nah, I'm just going to hide. No, people are actively after you.
They're hunting you down.
Yeah, and they're going to find you. The mechanics of the game, in fact, make it so they will find you. And I think that's a really cool concept. And then you can decide how you are going to react. Are you going to run again? Are you going to strike back?
That's right.
That's kind of interesting, especially because then you can interact with other deviants who have drunk the Kool-Aid. And hey, look, they have a bunch of their powers under control, and they don't have the negative feedbacks that you have. Don't you think you want to join up with them?
Come on, work for Stryker. It's not so bad.
Fuck that guy.
Francis from Deadpool.
Yep.
Speaking of Stryker.
Yep. Cool. On to the last one then.
Worst game in Chronicles.
Worst game. Yeah. Obviously,
terrible.
Mage. We're throwing Mage up at the top of the list. Well, I am. It's definitely like I've put up with this game. I've run this game for how long now, and still love it. Now maybe if I got to play it more, maybe I'd get tired of it. But we're not there yet.
Oh, ain't that convenient? Good for us to know that.
Right. Never let him play. Yeah. But no. I enjoy Mage. It is compared to all the others, this is the one where it's humans evolve. It is the next step of humanity. And it has, and this is the me thing. And if anybody has seen Drifter,
Silver ladder take on it, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was just say, if anybody's seen Drifter, none of this is going to surprise anybody. But yeah, it's the like, hey, the mages have stepped up and being both guardian and protector, shepherd, that vibe of superhero, because effectively that's how I played Drifter, is fun to me, and it is interesting. Besides the exploration of the astral, and hey, we can go to the underworld, let's go to the spirit, all these things that you can do with Mage. And in my opinion, they should have done more with, instead of going and creating Beast. But that's a separate thing. It's like, yeah, let's have Mage be the fulcrum. Mage and Hunter, effectively are the center axis of all this wackiness, and have that as like, oh yeah, everybody interacts and engages with these splats. But yeah, I enjoy the hell out of it. And Corbin, I'm going to call you out here and talk about, oh yeah, mages are really easy. They can just create a spell and get away with anything and clear any obstacle. Have you watched the Rookery? No, you just throw other mages at them. Because that is the challenge to mages. Sleepers and other mages.
More obstacles than they have solutions for is another way.
Yeah.
Also, just every mage isn't going to be able to do everything.
Right.
Like, you legitimately might not have a way to deal with this thing, because that's not what you do.
Which actually is one of the things I've really thought about doing, is like a Chronicle where it's like, oh no, it is a cabal of Moros. Now, yes, they're going to be death and matter, and they're each going to do some other splats, but they're these, Moros, underworld, explorers. And yeah, they've got a smattering of other stuff, but that's their focus. And actually playing with what weaknesses, and, that they're, they're Moros, so they're weak on spirit. And now all of a sudden there's some pissed off
names showing up.
Yeah, and they're like, does anybody have the phone number to some badass Thyrsus? Anybody?
Or an exterminator?
Yeah.
A werewolf even?
Do we know a werewolf?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a much less silver ladder take on Mage, but it doesn't diminish my enjoyment of it, because I don't see mages as evolved humanity, especially the way that most of them behave, and mechanics incentivize them to behave. I like the raise your fist against God trope of fighting against the exarchs a lot.
Oh yeah.
It is punk in the sort of cyberpunk connotation of the word, of everything's shit. What are you gonna do about it?
Yep.
How are you gonna survive? How are you gonna gain more power? Are you going to lose yourself in your obsessions? And as far as the solutions to problems thing go, we talked a little bit off stream about this before, but can you do that? Like, turn the ground to glass, sort of bombing, metaphorically, of a solution, if your family is there, or if your friends would witness your magic and you'd start breaking them. It's one of the things I've been really enjoying with Theo and Catherine.
As Craig tiptoes that Craig line continually,
pushes her off a cliff over and over again. But yeah, there's a lot of fun things to be explored within Mage, in a way that I don't see it as Mage as a superhero sort of thing. But that's like I said, there's a lot of ways a lot of different takes and a lot of different things to be enjoyed. Dual arcanes are very thematically interesting,
especially if you go grab the rules from Milo V3. Highly recommend. Replace, just tear that section of the book out.
I carefully worded my statement. And
they're nice in theory. Nice idea.
It's actually one of the things I really like about Changeling, is the oniromancy that you can do in Dreams and in the Hedge is essentially all of that. Like, just change things around you dramatically to get in the upper hand sort of thing. I like that a lot. And then obviously artifacts, and diving into what is actually the truth about the world as far as getting glimpses into the supernal is very, very cool.
Yeah, for me, Atratus was basically my ideal mage. Like, yeah, I'm not seeing mages as like the superheroes here to save the world or enlighten everyone. It's like just a desire to learn and know and dive into all of the weird things that were actually true the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of an insatiable curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun. Got to do a lot of fun things. And yeah, like I said, my long-term goal for her, and I guess you're talking about like the end game of mages ascending. No. It's like, no, she wants to learn.
Mm-hmm.
To learn everything, and you can't. She doesn't want to be out of the world to do that, right?
Oh, and this came up in Discord, and I really appreciated the conversation we had about it, because there was definitely some people who are like, no, if you're ascending, and I was very amused because it's like, do they know Atratus's take on ascending? Because it is that whole like, nah, I'm out. If you ascend, then you're signing up with the Exarchs and you're abandoning this world. I'm like, bruh, yeah. Spoilers for the Rookery. Plug your ears if you haven't finished it, but yeah. Songbird ascending, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. They're going to go sign up with the Exarchs, man, motherfucker. First, start just line them up and just start slapping them in the face.
Fight. Let's go.
Yeah, no. And the big thing to me, and because I brought it up in the Discord, I'm not going to rehash it. You can scroll up in general chat and find it. But is that, hey, once you've ascended, you've always been ascended, and you fundamentally change the universe in some way.
You have become a symbol so hard that you became that symbol.
Yep.
And always have been.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's nice for other people. That's not
right, exactly,
at all the sort of mage I would be interested in. So.
Yep.
For sure. And that's good. So, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, but there's so much to do and so many different ways to both good and horrible and indifferent that you can
lots of different stories
right off into the sunset. Yeah. Ralph, you got mage stakes? I bet you do.
Yeah, I do have mage stakes. My interest is in the extremes of wisdom. I either want to play someone enlightened or I want to play a banisher, straight up, or not necessarily banisher. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Or I want to play someone wrapped.
Mm-hmm.
Because obsessions are the source of the bifurcation, right? If you focus on your obsessions in ways that aid you in maintaining control over the consequences of your actions, then you get to wisdom 10 and they keep you there. Or if you just say, fuck it, I just want to have fun with this stuff, then you go to wisdom 1. And when you're there, people are like, you need to care about this stuff. And you're like, why should I care about this stuff? You know how much energy is required to get out of where I am now? I am so free. I am so much more free than you will ever be. I don't have to worry about any of the concerns that you have. And I never will ever again. And there's nothing you can do to demonstrate that this is wrong. Because ascension and archmastery are not directly linked to wisdom. They're somewhat associated with it, but they're not. It's not contingent on wisdom. Yeah, you can technically be wisdom 1 and go, right? It depends. Right? It depends upon the individual.
Archmage and Taunt, I think that's equivalent to the Wrapped.
Yeah, right? There's all kinds of stuff you can do that in the context of morality would seem absurd or abhorrent, right?
Yeah.
But mages have a different perspective, and I think that's nice. I think
wisdom's not morality. We say it all the time.
They say it all the time. People say it all the time. It isn't, right? So you can have a very specific perspective on the kinds of ethical decisions you're willing to make, and also have what seems like a contrasting perspective on how careful you're willing to be with the power you have. And so the power is what I think is interesting. I think there's a lot of demonstration in the rules and the fiction that mages can accomplish almost everything that they want to do more slowly without using magic or without casting a spell. Not without using magic or doing something supernatural necessarily, right? But without casting a spell. And what I find compelling is sometimes the results are more satisfying for that mage. It depends upon the mage, right? Casting a spell and accomplishing this in a timely fashion might be more satisfying, but you might create a lasting effect. You might bring people in who can maintain something for you. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. Like when we're talking about antagonists and challenges in a social context, when we say that, hey, other mages are like one of the most potent dangers to mages themselves, the best thing you can do if you want to get together and make sure you're safe from mages is make a bunch of mundane booby traps and veil them with fate. Make sure that they cross over all kinds of different ways. They cause damage within the scope of the different arcana. So it's unlikely that everyone's going to be completely shielded from them or protected. And so even if they have reflexive mage armor, you have some kind of crazy bomb that goes off, right? And shreds an entire apartment. And no one can predict that it's there because, I don't know, what pact you made. You got some Archmaster to get some fate veiling spell. You brought in Supernal Being to do it. However the hell you did, right? You can do that. So it's about you, right? Mage is about you. It's not about the people you fight. And in many other stories, it's about the people you fight. You're defining yourself in contrast to others. In Mage, you're defining yourself in contrast to who you were before, when you first awakened, who you were yesterday, the relationships you've made. And I find that interesting because that's what a story is, right? A story is about how characters progress, how they understand themselves more. And there's a tremendous reflection for ourselves as well.
Right. And I think that, double checking. There's nothing else down here, nothing listed. So we've gone through all of it. So if you've made it all the way through this 2-hour video, and YouTube will have cut some of this down, but Corbin's video was only 20 minutes, but he only had one person talking. But yes, share your list with us. Come by YouTube from YouTube. Come on over to Discord, www.yeetinto.space, and come by our Discord and share this. Drop it into the Twitch spoilers channel. Actually, probably drop it into the general RPG channel. So you jump into his Twitch spoilers channel. Who knows what you're going to see?
There's going to be lots of stuff.
Yeah. But it's always fun to discuss this stuff, and there are no wrong answers. There are no right answers either. So long as you're having fun, it's okay. I joke about not being super into D&D, but you better believe if some of my buddies were like, hey, we're running D&D, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Can I bring my swashbuckling Warforged?
Please do. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. I went with the you guys were in the game. I went with my changeling, but I definitely regretted not having made it a Warforged. But yeah,
we could have been a Warforged party.
I know.
Moving so
what?
Good.
You missed out on that?
I know. But it was a
3 Warforged, a gay warlock, tiefling, and fucking Timothy.
Goddamn Timothy. So yeah, if you're curious about any of that, come by Discord and ask us about it. But yeah, if you want to support us monetarily, that's patreon.com/occultistsanonymous or staylucky.club. Also, again, a shout out to Corbin over at the Awkward GM. Link to his video and channel down below. Go subscribe and hang out with him. He does a lot of, hey, this is a view into these games. As always with YouTube videos, take it with a grain of salt. It is one perspective. And similar to ours, this was 4 perspectives. But Corbin does his research and talks about the various splats and books and how things work and stuff like that. So it's a good bunch of stuff. So enjoy that. Check that out. It's been fun to watch him going up and putting out some more and more stuff. And I think Dork Tales is the other channel that was also challenged, so they will also probably be putting out a video at some point, so go find that somewhere. If I find it in time, or it comes out in time, I will also link that down in the description below. Otherwise, yeah, come see us on Twitch next week.
Play Mage next week.
Hopefully we'll be playing Mage again, because there's this storm that y'all gotta figure out.
Oh yeah, we're doing stuff.
Yeah.
Join us at midnight for OA After Dark.
That's not a thing. It's
not real.
You can join Ralph, obviously.
Ralph, wherever you
Especially God, midnight your time.
Midnight his time, right? Yeah, I know. All right.
It's at midnight every time.
Yeah.
It's just constantly going.
Real degenerate hours.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
Camo says he'll be there.
Yeah,
Crazy underworld Australians and stuff. All right. We'll see y'all later. Bye, folks.
Yeah.
Adios.